remember when cartoon shows were made without insulting our intelligence, when they had actual substance, even sometimes a positive message here and there, that anybody, and I mean anybody, any race, any gender, could reflect upon and better themselves. It might be the old man in me, but it just seems the cartoons from the 90s and the 2000s were just simply superior in any way to modern day ones. When I think of one, what comes to mind is immediately one of the very first shows that I saw as a kid on a Saturday morning. And it was Nickelodeon, by the way. Danny Phantom, which was created by Butch Hartman, whom also came up with the fairly known Fairly Odd Parents. See what I did there? This show was wildly popular among my generation. Yeah, I might sound old, but I'm not that old, am I? Well, I'm 30, yeah. What? 40s are looming? Oh shit. These were ancient times, before we became the writers and ruined all of modern TV with crappy, woke, or most of the time, a combination of both that just made awful writing.
Smells like some millennial bullshit to me.
Apologies for all the generations after us. Hopefully a millennial or two can actually write a good script. Anyways, before I do a whole hour segment of why wokeness and crappy writing ruin TV shows, let's just get back to Danny. This show had it all, and I mean that. Heck, isn't it funny how actually organic diversity was back in our day? When nobody even tried? All you gotta do is just look at the Disney movies from my generation versus what you're getting right now. Hell, even in Danny this was present. You had ghosts from all walks of life, and the trio protagonists were very unique. You had Sam, one of the first God girl crushes for all of us. Well, right after the Pink Ranger, but she wasn't God chick. Who was an ultra vegan climate activist, as well as an animal lover. It's like they bundled up all the leftist policies on Sam. And then you had Tucker, the nerdy tech black guy that loves to eat meat. And it's a polar opposite to Sam in a lot of her views of the world. Finally, you had the star of the show, Danny Phantom, or Fenton, which is his actual last name. Danny was simply a regular kid with ghost powers as a kind of a neutral anchor in the frame. Whenever these activists make wild claims there was no diversity back in our day and everything was racist, I always ask myself, did they even watch our shows growing up? Or is it just a bunch of people that don't know what the heck they're talking about and they're just trying to push an agenda? Just look at Danny Phantom. You couldn't ask for a more diverse cast even if you tried harder. Hell, even some of his love interests are from all races. So how is this show racist, activist, huh? I want you to answer that. Now wait till that kind of crowd finds out about Static Shock. They will literally be shocked. So why was this show such a hit? It pretty much followed the meta of the time, which was a different plot every episode with no overarching plot until they would hit a season finale, which would usually consist of either one long episode or just 2 episodes, a 2-parter per se. Not only that, it's also got a lot, and I mean a lot of Spider-Man influence. I would even dare say that Danny is basically just a ghost version of Spidey. He even has a bully named Dash that looks awfully similar to Flash. Flash, Dash, kinda seen the connection there. Of course, not every characteristic is present in the show. For example, Danny is lacking the genius of Peter Parker, and he pretty much doesn't have much battle IQ. He gets his ass kicked constantly throughout the entirety of the show, almost to the point that they should have renamed it Danny Beatdown instead of Danny Phantom. Like I said, he's not very bright. He sucks in the academic department, as he seemingly does not share his mom and sister's genius. Whether that makes him more relatable, it depends on the person and their experience with school. What also makes him like Spidey? Well, even when Danny wins, he ends up losing. Coincidence? I think not. Neither was it that they both got their powers during their early high school years. Heck, even an episode gets super dark the Spidey route with the consequences of losing, a la Spidey style, and only through time manipulation was everything able to be undone. And this was exactly the recipe for success amongst my peers. People love watching a hero that struggles, that grows, and becomes stronger over time. Just look at how popular Goku is. He's the embodiment of getting your ass beat, only to become stronger through training. Same thing with Danny Phantom, although not to a redonkulous scale as Dragon Ball. As a kid, and even now as an adult, I've always wondered just how strong is Danny Phantom, and I'm sure a lot of us still do so. So, guess what? I actually did the math. Big warning. Everything from here on is an educated guess based on feats that we've seen on the show, as long as some calculations with the weight of real life objects. Well, I can definitely say that he is packing some serious firepower. During his early days, Danny was flying around speeds of 110 miles per hour, and he only gets faster as the show keeps going on, possibly reaching subsonic speeds. His initial strength is hard to quantify. However, we are aware he can at least lift 2 tons. Since regular ghost foot soldiers are seen lifting that amount, you remember that Dark Pariah episode? These skeletons are just throwing cars like they're volleyballs. And at his max, I would say around 15 tons, as Danny was seen lifting a fully loaded school bus. Without a doubt, Danny can increase his super strength, as Vlad Plasmius, his arch enemy and half ghost as well, strength level is in the ballpark about 30 to 40 tons. Danny's future self in 10 years can lift upwards of 50 tons without a problem. Right now you're calling Source? Well, during his debut, he just picks up a military tank, which can range in weight from 30 to 50 tons on average, and throws it like it's a basketball. Danny's speed and strength are nothing to scoff at, but they're not his main assets. His ghostly powers, which are super OP by the way, especially the whole becoming intangible part, as well as the body morphine. Oh yeah, did I forget he can also produce copies of himself? He's sounding more like Martian Manhunter at this point. But let's not forget his main power of choice, ghostly energy, aka ectoplasm, which he can manipulate in the form of either blast, shields, and even give it some sticky properties, making it useful for binding objects or persons. Kind of like a Green Lantern. Damn, kind of seeing a pattern here. Also, let's not forget about his ghostly whale, which instantly defeated the future and way stronger version of him and his spelling cast, which is why even after he obtains it, it is rarely used. Lastly, but not the least important, Danny also has ice powers, which he had from the start in the form of that little ghost sense, right? Kind of like the Spidey sense, ghost sense, but it was just like a little chill running down his spine. Makes sense for a ghost. And later, he develops this into full-blown ice powers in order to actually defeat the plant villain of the episode, which thoroughly, again, kicked his ass. Danny Phantom was Nick's premier superhero with a more of a lighthearted take than the rest of the heroes of the time. He was their chance to get in the ring with the big shots and actually compete in the superhero genre that actually just kept getting traction after Spider-Man the animated series, X-Men, and Justice League had made us fans of this. So what happened to the show? Why didn't it continue unlike Butch's other show, The Fairly Odd Parents? Well, just like everything in those times, merchandise and ratings made or killed the show. For Nickelodeon, SpongeBob SquarePants was actually their crown jewel. And it's what kept Nick alive for so long, but it could also be argued to be Nickelodeon's downfall into irrelevance in anything unrelated to the show. I honestly can't remember any Danny Phantom merchandise other than a couple Burger King toys. Heck, I remember playing a Game Boy game where Danny would come out alongside several other Nickelodeon characters, which wasn't anything special, just an average game. Apparently, there were more Danny Phantom games, at least for the Game Boy Advance, but I honestly don't remember any advertising for it. In the 2000s, not selling merchandise meant the inevitable death of your show, unless you had super high ratings, which the show also lacked. So why didn't Nick put out any merch for Danny Phantom? Well, simply put, the show was done dirtier than a single mom who's recently divorced would do to any fella they can graft. Wink wink. In the video, Why Did Danny Phantom End? By its creator Butch Hartman, he recalls exactly what happened. When the time to get the merchandising done for Danny was upon the studio, Nickelodeon had a meeting with them and straight up told them, nah, actually Avatar The Last Airbender is getting the toys.
And right when they were going to start making Danny Phantom toys, they had a meeting with me and they said, you know what, Butch, we love Danny Phantom, but we're going to start making toys of Avatar The Last Airbender. That's right, they started making toys of Avatar The Last Airbender instead. And then Danny Phantom, I don't want to use the word canceled, but they just said we're not going to make anymore. I guess that's canceled. So I guess but just don't say canceled. Just say any other word besides canceled. We're going to stop the fun. I guess, well, that's just his, anyway. So they said Danny Phantom was done. And you're thinking to yourself, why? Yeah. Why do networks and shows. I mean, a lot of other people wanted to know that as well. People in New York, outside Nickelodeon studios, where Viacom is located on Broadway, they started picketing. There were a lot of Danny Phantom fans that actually stood outside the building with signs that said, "Bring back Danny Phantom." And this went on for a long time. And people were just writing me their support, how much they loved the show. One day I got 20,000 emails. And at the time, the studio was sort of changing hands. What I mean by that is the leaders of Nickelodeon, like the guy who gave me Danny Phantom in the first place, he was moving on to another job. And so he was no longer the head of Nickelodeon. Another head of Nickelodeon came in. And sometimes when a new person comes in to head a studio, they will change a lot of the stuff the previous person did. Why do they do that? Because they don't want the previous person's stuff, in case it starts to fail, they don't want it to reflect badly on them. And Danny Phantom was becoming a hit. It wasn't as quick a hit as Fairly Odd Parents was, but Danny Phantom was quickly becoming a hit.
Which, honestly, times 4, times 10, whichever you want to say, I can't really fault them for that. Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the best shows, animated-wise, of our generation. Even to this date, you can't even compare The Legend of Korra to The Legend of Aang. Back on topic, in that same meeting, he was also told there was going to be no more funding for Danny Phantom, that it was done, and he was not allowed to say it was cancelled. Thankfully though, the creators were allowed to produce a season 2 and 3, as well as end it with a grand finale. Was this a good move by Nickelodeon? It depends. If you ask me personally to choose between both shows, which one I would save and which one I would kill, I would have saved Avatar: The Last Airbender. But, Big Bud, that does not mean that Danny Phantom sucks. You do what you can with what you have. And Danny excelled with the smaller budget that it had, although it did suffer from bad writing sometimes, mainly inconsistent. From what Butch says, it seems there were a bit of politics involved as well, as the new head of Nickelodeon took over around the same time with this cancellation. In conclusion, it was pretty much a series of very unfortunate events that led to the demise of the show. I would kill to get some more Danny Phantom, but this time made for adults, without holding anything back. Think something like Invincible in terms of gore. Better writing, updated animation. Heck, I would kill for animation like Avatar: The Last Airbender, or even something like Demon Slayer. But again, that's all billetes, so they're not gonna do it. With how things are today, who knows? They might actually bring it back, although in a inferior form. But that's the devil in the details. With how things are run today in the media, entertainment, and all that industry, they might try to adapt it for their modern audience, which is still non-existent. I can't find it, because everything they built for them just bombs. Now that I've given it some thought, maybe it's just better to keep it buried and not see it destroyed like so many franchises have been destroyed currently. So what do you think? Did you like Danny Phantom growing up? Did you hate it? Would you be up for a revival of the show? Or just keep it buried and occasionally rewatch it? There are some rumors about a live action, but again, nothing concrete, just rumors. If you liked my video, please help me out with a like. And if you love my content and want to see more of it, please subscribe. It goes a long way, and I'm grateful for each and every one that subscribes. This is Rage Skylar, and I'm going Ghost.